And Madison fares relatively poorly with those presidential scholars who pit all the presidents against each other, no matter their generation, in a common race to assess their relative greatness. A great president is supposed to be able, through his charisma, to shape public opinion and move Congress to act. 20th century presidents, especially Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, Ronald Reagan, and the legend of John F. Kennedy, set the paradigm. By comparison, pre-Lincoln presidents appear wanting, save for Jackson and Washington, who look so good on horseback leading men into battle. Now, these rather ahistorical presidential studies represent the great man theory on steroids. For they insist that the public and Congress are inert but malleable. They can only be prodded to do the right things by the proper exercise of executive charisma. Now, this version of the great president now seems like especially wishful thinking in our current time of gridlock. In this vein, we have those surveys of scholars who rank all the presidents on a spectrum that grades them as great, near great, average, mildly disappointing, completely wretched, and James Buchanan. That was for you, Gary.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, Madison occupies a relatively mediocre rank, generally around 17th or 18th in these surveys. But he only gets that high because he earned extra credit for doing other good things earlier in his life. Now, ranking all presidents on a common scale tends to misassess leaders of earlier generations by standards created long after they had died. My case today is that Madison served as president in a very different country with a very different spin on the Constitution from that partially remade by Abraham Lincoln and fully remodeled by the Roosevelts and their successors in the 20th century. In the early republic, the prevailing construction of the federal Constitution by the governing Republican Party limited national and presidential power. And Madison dutifully accepted and strengthened those limits until they trapped him in the crisis of 1814. During the War of 1812, Madison played his part in the political problem, but ultimately that problem was systemic rather than personal. Had Madison been taller and read fewer books, he still could not have averted the crisis created by almost everyone active in American politics during his generation.